can I do, like, to kind of, are we going to start to see like new parts of like like small societies form of people that don't want to be influenced by technology? Or, you know, what do you feel like some of the future looks like as far as trying to retain some sense of holding on to my attention and using it for myself as opposed to letting it be used by outside influences? Does that make any sense or not?
Yes, yes. Well,
okay, good.
Look, there's another rule, I suppose, a dictum perhaps, that if you don't have your own story, then you're going to be a bit player in someone else's story. Okay, so let's talk about that fog again. So let's say, because of the reasons you already laid out, you don't want to make your conditions for failure conscious, because then you know when you're failing, and that hurts. You don't want to make your plans for the future too clear, because then if you don't attain what you're looking for, it's very clear that you've lost it, which is somewhat different than failure, right? And then there's also the problem that if you make your motives clear to other people, then they really have the ammunition to hurt you, because like, I can hurt you by depriving you of what you want, but I can hurt you even better if I really know what you want and can deprive you of that. So you have reasons to keep these things unclear. But the problem then is that you don't have a direction that's powerful, right? Because you're not consulting yourself, watching yourself, learning about yourself, figuring out who you are, and figuring out what kind of route through life you would have to take to be engaged. Okay, so then you get weak because you're not integrated. You're all over the place. You're scattered. Well, then anybody who has power for one reason or another can compete with you for your own attention and win. And so if you don't have your own plan, painful as it is to develop one, partly because you have to take your own inadequacies into account. Oh yes, and you also mentioned, you know, you posit an ideal, this is what I want, or this is who I could be. The farther away that is from you, the more inadequate you feel in relationship to it. You know, so that's another reason to avoid it. But yes, well, that's why every ideal is a judge. There's no getting away from that. Now, if it's too much for you, I might say, well, make a lesser ideal. Like, try to pursue something that doesn't intimidate you into paralysis.
Right. Start with something closer that's more manageable, huh? So you can even prove to yourself that you can do it.
Exactly. Well, what you really want to do is you want to lay out a plan that has a pretty high-end aim, but that also consists of steps that aren't too intimidating. So you have to ask yourself, I would like to do this. I should do it, but would I do it? And the answer is likely to be no, often, because you know what you're like. You're supposed to go to the gym, but you don't. It's like, okay, well, maybe you won't go to the gym, but maybe you'd walk half a block every second day, something like that. And you have to ask yourself, I write about this in the first chapter about the advantage of being a fool. You know, if you notice that you're not so good at something, then you can calibrate down the goal until a fool like you can manage it, and then you can attain it, and then you're not quite so much of a fool. And so, okay, so you have to build a plan. I have a tool for that I often recommend for people called self-authoring.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it.
Okay, well, it was developed in an attempt to help people write out, well, an account of themselves, past, present, and future, but relevant to this discussion is to make a plan. It's like, what is it that you need to thrive in the world, or at least not to become bitter? And if you don't have your own plan that you're committed to, right, and honestly committed to, what that means is that you will be the pawn of other people's decisions.
Especially now more than ever, it feels like. Do you think that that's true?
Well, that certainly seems to be the conclusion we're reaching in the course of this conversation. It's like, as the powers around you become more and more invasive, but also of more utility to you to some degree. I mean, we don't want to be completely negative about computational power.
Right,
we wouldn't be having this discussion without it. But as the forces around you have more and more capacity to grip your attention, it stands to reason that you're going to have to be the captain of your own ship to a greater and greater degree. Otherwise, you'll fall you'll fall prey to those who wish to monetize your attention.